We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity with Young Women. And years ago, I was talking to a client of ours, All-Mary, and she had, I think she had 3 or 4 kids. She had her own business and stuff like that. And once she got onto a coaching session and she said, Mark, I'm not motivated. And so what would you suggest? And I don't know if any of you ever come up with something brilliant, something that's so spectacular that you're impressed with yourself. This does not happen a lot with me, but when it does, I make a mental note of it and say, holy cow, I can't believe I just said that. So I said to her, oh, Mary, do you know what the benefits of not being motivated are? And she's like, no. And I said, well, it gives you a chance to exercise your self-discipline muscles. Like if we're motivated, we just, we do stuff, we get stuff done. But when we're not motivated, oh my gracious. So yesterday was an eventful day. I was sharing with Nicole on the pre and the, if on the podcast, if you're able to attend the pre and the post, want to do that, because that's where the real cool is. I was just telling Nicole that my wife of 39 years, she woke me up yesterday morning and at 1:30 in the morning, and she said something's not right, and she's kind of tipsy and her heart's like going crazy. And I felt her neck, and it's like, so it turns out it was going at 180 when it should be running about 70 or so. So we take her into the emergency room, and the doctor is, checks her out and talks to her and stuff like that. And they gave her something that brought her the heartbeats down. I don't know what it was, maybe medication, maybe something else. I don't know, something. And all of a sudden it just dropped. I saw it go from like 186 down to like 80, just bam, it just boom. And so, okay, so that kind of helped there. And we're talking, he says, I have some concerns about a heart attack, maybe. And, so he's talking, and both, I'm 60, my wife is 59. So we're starting to get a little bit older. So need to be a little bit more careful about things. Maybe. Anyways, and he goes ahead and says this. He's like, yeah, I'm not real concerned, but I think we need to. There's a little bit of concern. And he looks at my wife and he looks at me, and maybe there was some concern on our faces or something. And he's like, oh, don't worry. I don't think it's the end. And I'm like, what? I'm like, whoa, that's kind of weird. So we go through, and I mean, what a night, all kinds of tests and all kinds of other stuff, and not going on any sleep and everything. And we got home, we got out just in time to go ahead and go to our kids, our 2 of our grandkids' swim lessons. So we go there and show up, and our daughter's shocked. And, we're there like, you guys are not, should you be here? Like, no, we're fine. She's got a heart monitor. It'll be fine. Like, it's not a problem. And then we got home, and then our oldest daughter, who's pregnant, she has 5 kids, and she's pregnant. And so she was in the hospital, same hospital we were in. We didn't know she was in it. And so then they gave her some meds that really she shouldn't be driving. So we drove back there. And so when you're not motivated, what do we do? A lot of times it's just discipline. Build the discipline muscles. Like we just do. But I will tell you, like Jim Rohn, he says, I don't know how to motivate people. So I find motivated people. And Peter Schmidt, he's an amputee, a good friend of mine for decades. He and I have an interesting relationship. Sometime we'll talk about that on another podcast. But anyways, he was talking and he said, how do I motivate my employees? And I said, well, that's a good question. He said, Jim Rohn says, for those that don't know Jim Rohn, he's like Zig Ziglar's mentor. Every motivational speaker in the world, like it goes back to Jim Rohn. He was the first one, worldwide known. The guy's brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. And it was soon after he died, actually, that I was talking to Peter, and and he said something. He said, Jim Rohn says this. And I said, boy, I wish he was alive. He had just passed away a few months earlier. He says, why? I said, well, I had to have a couple of questions for him. And he's like, well, what would the questions be? And I said, well, what if one of those unmotivated people is one of your kids? Then what do you do? He's like, wow. I mean, you just can't get a new one. I mean, I had 7 at the time, and it's a couple of them. I'm concerned, like they don't have motivation. And he said, well, what was the other question? I said, what if your life vision is there's not enough motivated people on the planet, so you got to figure out how to motivate people. Like an option isn't, well, I just find motivated people. I got to figure out how to motivate them. So I started out on a journey, and you'd think with, went to, really good business school, Northern Illinois University. So they're, I don't know, prestigious, but they're, really good, solid business school. And I have 3 degrees in business, one in finance, one in management, one in marketing. You'd think they'd teach you how to motivate people, but they didn't. And then, being an international speaker and author, you'd think, you'd know that, but I didn't. And then being invited to the White House and knowing a lot of world thought leaders, you'd think that one of them would know, but I asked all of them and none of them knew. And so I was writing a book with 2 of my nieces who are 5 and 7 years old, Brianna and Olivia. So every Saturday I get together, and it was relationships for a lifetime. How do you build lifelong relationships? That's the book I was working on with my nieces. Such a fun project. Now they're, young adults. And but so I said to them, I said, girls, Uncle Mark's trying to figure out how to motivate people, and you don't know Jim Rohn, but Jim Rohn, he's really, this guy's like world renowned. And he says he doesn't know how to motivate people, so he finds motivated people, but Uncle Mark doesn't have that option. So do you have any suggestions on how to motivate people? And Brienne, bless her little soul, like she was like 7 years old. She didn't even bat an eye. She says, well, Uncle Mark, like dumb Uncle Mark, like he doesn't know, like, duh, like this is not that complicated. And I'm like, okay. She's like, well, Uncle Mark, the way they motivate us in Girl Scouts is to tell us stories. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, like I'm Uncle Mark, you are not a very smart person. She's like, Uncle Mark, how they go ahead and, how they go ahead and teach you to sell cookies. Like, you don't want to sell cookies. You don't want to go out and do it. You're not motivated. So what they do is they have videos of girls that are telling stories about success. She's like, you need to, the way to motivate people is to tell stories. And I thought, holy cow. Like, think about that for just a moment. A 7-year-old girl, she has to first know what motivation is. Like, I don't know if I knew what motivation was as a 7-year-old. Then she had to internalize that and say, when was I motivated? And she thought of selling Girl Scout cookies. And then she had to say, well, how did they find out? Like, how did they motivate? And then she had to think, well, they motivated me by telling stories. So the way that you motivate people is you tell stories. And then I thought Jim Rohn actually did know how to motivate people because he told stories. So all the greatest leaders and spiritual leaders and other leaders, all the leaders, they're great storytellers. I'm not that great of a storyteller, not naturally at least. And so I thought, here's a 7-year-old girl that changed my life forever. So, young women, look for other women who have a story to tell. Like, if you're a young woman and you have children, look for other women who have children. If you're a young woman who doesn't have children yet, um, talk to young women who have children, single moms, they're amazing. Like, wow. Um, talk to moms who have children. Moms are amazing. I mean, they really are. like, are they really motivated to go ahead and fix you dinner every day? Are they really motivated to go ahead and take all your stinky clothes? Are they really motivated to clean up vomit? Are they really, they just do things. And so, motivation can come from discipline. I like discipline. And so I go to that as my mark, just be disciplined. Like yesterday, just be disciplined, be a good husband. My wife says, you can go home. I'm like, no, I'm going to stay here the whole time. Um, I need to continue to be a dad, and then I need to be a grandfather. So I need to be, this is what being a man is. It's just, this is to be a man. This is what it is. I think women, this to be a woman, this is what it is to be an amazing woman. This is what it is to be an amazing man, and then be that man or be that woman. Find others. I find perspective, you know, I find perspective. And so my daughter who, has 5 kids and pregnant, and like, I can't even imagine being pregnant. Like, that's gotta be hard. like there's 2 of you. Like, you got feed, and there's 2 of you. Like, how does that work? Like it just, I don't know. Women just, amaze me. So young women, I think, sometimes to have perspective and look at others and say, wow, I thought I have it bad, but others have it harder. And then sometimes, know your body. I remember like 39 years, that's a good chunk of time to be with a woman. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, you get to know women. I remember when she was probably maybe 50, I think. And I don't know why, but she asked me if I wanted to go into a doctor's appointment. I did that when she was younger, when we were first married, going for doctor's appointments and other stuff. But I hadn't done it for years with 7 kids, a lot of stuff going on. I said, or maybe I didn't. Maybe she didn't even ask me. I think she told me she was going in for a doctor's appointment. And yeah, I don't think she asked me. She just said, "Hey, I'm going in for a doctor's appointment." I'm like, okay. She says, just a checkup, just to see how things are. I'm like, okay. And I said, you want me to come along? And she's like, looks at me kind of weird and like, okay, if you want to. I'm like, I got nothing else to do. I'll do that. She's like, okay. So we go to go there, and, she checked out and stuff and everything. And there was a female doctor. And so she was kind of in the premenopause stuff and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that guys don't want to touch. And I understand why. Like, it's just, as a guy, it's like, it can be a little bit intimidating as a guy. Um, but with 4 daughters now, and it's like, it's not that big. It's fine. It's all good. So, anyways, the woman doctor said, Rosanna, menopause is really all in your head. And I'm like, I am so dead. What was I thinking? This is not a good thing. Like, I should not be here. I am going to pay a price for. I mean, if it was a male doctor, it'd have been fine. But a female doctor telling her it's all in her head, I'm like, this is not going to go well. Sure enough, we get out. Man, she is mad. She is hopping mad. She is so mad. And I'm not saying she's taking it out on me, but I'm kind of feeling like she's taking it out on me. I'm not the one who said it. Her doctor said it. And then she starts crying. And I'm like, honey, I don't understand. Like, help me understand. And she's like, my whole life, like, I've known my body, and I don't anymore. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with my body. And it's the first time that I realized very deeply how men and women look at their bodies very different. I mean, I knew it. but I didn't know it at that level where it's like she's out of sync. Like her, like everything she does, being a mom, being a wife, being a businesswoman, like everything she does centers around her body. And if she's not in sync with her body, it really, and I just, like, I gave her a hug and I said, honey, I am so sorry. Like, I don't, what else am I going to say? And so women are amazing. They're special. Now I have 5 granddaughters. And so being a young woman is hard. It's just hard. It's just really, really hard. But it's really cool too. And there's a lot of amazing benefits to being a young woman too. Like there's good and there's hard things too. So if you're not motivated, it's okay. Sometimes you push through it, especially moms. This is what moms do. You just push through it. Somehow you figure out the energy and you just do it. Other times, I don't know, take a bubble bath, like take a day off. Like, well, that's easy for you to say, Mark. Well, maybe not with 7 kids and all the things I've got going on in my life. Sometimes, so you look at that and you say, what am I able to do? And so hopefully this has been an encouragement for sure. Don't go ahead and be a spectator in Voices of Integrity for Young Women. Like, don't do that. Like, be a participant, get on the field, register for the Life GPS. It's free. There's no cost. It takes a couple minutes to go on, and then they'll introduce you to somebody else in the group. And then you can do with that whatever you want to do, but they'll help you get the most out of the group. But you're going to gain so much more by not just listening to a podcast, but participating with other people, sharing your thoughts, them sharing their thoughts. I think young women, I think more now than I've ever seen before, they long for deep relationships with other young women, with other older women, with their dad and brothers and husband, obviously, and sons and stuff like that. I think there's a longing out there with social media to go ahead and have lots and lots of relationships, but nothing's deep, maybe. So this is very different. Definitely, do that. If you have any questions, need any help, feel free to connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.